Yes, we are there. Are we, Ruchira?
It's popped up here.
Yes. So, hello everyone. We are there again for with our new guest, Abhijit and Megha, my personal favorites from all my activities. I welcome my dear friends Abhijit and Megha here. Uh, they are co-founders of Project DeFi. We will understand from them what is Project DeFi, what are they doing there, and what are their views on education. And there are so many discussions happening around education nowadays. So let's first figure out with them what are they doing. So Abhijit, could you please explain us what is Project DeFi doing?
Well, that has, I think, two answers now. I think we should have a BC and AD before Corona and whatever after it. So what we have been doing all these years is create self-learning spaces. These spaces are called NOOCs, and um, these are places where a community or a village or a group of people can use to learn whatever they want to learn, however they want to learn, whenever they want to learn. So it's an open learning space where people gather. There are no teachers. There's no exams or curricula. People gather and they decide individually and in groups what is it that they want to accomplish in the coming months, in the coming years, and they create their own path. And so you have a space where different people are creating different paths, but then in order to be able to achieve those paths, they need help from other people. So they all sort of help each other because there's a codependency and there is nobody, no third party there whose job is to teach them. So that's what we have been doing before Corona, and hope to be doing after as well. During these times, we actually thought we might have a little bit of, let's say, rest, but that's not happened. Work actually increased because we had to again start thinking, what is it that people need most? We started talking to all the people that we work with, and just ask them, hey, what is it that you need? Because that's how our model has worked even before. And we didn't want to force on them that, hey, you know what, let's find a way to make the NOOC run. That's not the point, let's find a way to make life run. That's sort of the overture of this. So we asked and they said, you know what, right now we need money and we need food. So said, okay, let's first work that out. And so we started raising some money, getting help from people, and started creating a list of people who need help. And we did that. We found these resources and sent it over to them. Then we started talking to them that, okay, now that this is resolved, and don't worry, we will keep working on that continuously. What else? What could we do? And at that point, somebody, actually one of the people we work with, she made a very interesting point that, she's stuck up at home with her kids, and the kids are not going to school anymore. And she said, I don't know what to do. I have no idea. The education has stopped and I'm completely, I can't teach them anything. And that's was sort of an interesting moment. So we started talking again to a lot of people, and they all sort of had this, what had disrupted was just the way of life and the routine, and people were staying together forcibly, but they did not, were not able to understand how to navigate through this mess. And sometimes families within themselves will have a difficulty talking to each other. So we thought, okay, let's see if we can do something there. So we started talking to entire families, and to help them sort of navigate the situation, and um, and to discover what learning is going to come out of this, and what learning can be created from during these times. So you don't feel that you are staying uneducated for this period. It's sort of ridiculous to think like that, right? So and the other thing that bothered us a lot was the sort of global response to school shutting down, was to take what was already boring, and the sort of classroom teaching, and shove it down the internet to people's homes and make them sit for 6 hours in front of the screen. So we were like, this sounds stupid. I mean, nobody told us, oh, we would like a teacher at our home. So nobody said that. So that did not feel right. And all of these parents so concerned that, oh my God, my child has to learn, my child has to learn. We said, no, let's change that conversation. Why don't you learn as well? Let's all learn. Let's learn as a family, and a group of people. So we started doing that. And right now, that's among some other things, that is one of the things that we are running, piloting at the moment.
Okay. So one thing, you set up learning spaces, and another thing, now you are doing something where families are learning together, right? So what is the educational philosophy, Megha, if I can ask you? What is the underlying philosophy of these projects?
Sure. So I think the philosophy that is common to both of them is that learning happens naturally. So learning as you and I know it in education models, in the school model, in the university model, is built off on just saying, let's build out factory line learners, right? So they can go to good companies, they can do what society wants them to do. Whereas learning, one, happens naturally. Two, learning happens simply because we're all curious people, right? Humans just by nature are curious, right? And so if you allow humans to really go ahead and build on that curiosity, and all, if you're able to give them is access to spaces, access to environments, access to a community where it's not already pre-decided for them, they pretty much also know what they can do with that learning. So instead of saying that, you need to teach someone why should they learn this, what will happen out of this learning, and therefore what will the big fancy future look like, if you actually let them choose, if you give them choice of what they want to learn, they're also pretty great at figuring out where does that learning position in their life. Whether it positions to them to find a job, or whether it positions to them to actually build bonds with the community they live in, whether it is to find themselves a path in doing research further, or whether it's just finding themselves solutions to the local problems, right? So I think that is still common between both these programs that run in the space model, and right now with families also coming together, right? That there is no deposition. There is nothing like, families, parents don't need to learn that after a certain level it stops, right? That if it's not in school, if it's not in university, it's not happening, right? Or if it's not in a skilling center, or if it is not in that, right? Whereas that's not true. And whereas you actually see parents, you see adults, you see all of them learning so much more when they're actually learning with a child. So I think that still stays the philosophy at the core of this.
So if I can ask you, इतनी प्रॉब्लम क्या है स्कूल सिस्टम से, एजुकेशन इकोसिस्टम से, क्या प्रॉब्लम है आपको?
Well, so I think I think system, right? That wo shab, that word system, right? That everything has to fall under a standardized version of what some people decide is society, right? So schools, universities, skilling centers, whatever you call them, right? They've all been created by a bunch of people who decided for the complete humanity race that this is how you can function, right? And iske alawa koi tarika hi nahi hai, right? So I mean, if you really go back and look at schools, right, it's this, I mean, why do we think that we need a classroom inside which one person talking to 50 people telling them what is good for them makes sense? Why do we assume that a 6-year-old does not already have the mental capacity to know what's good for her? Why do we assume that people need to be trained, people need to be, told what to do, right? So just that word system, right? Who created it? What was the intent of creating that system? And who is it serving? Who is it really serving? Who is the education system serving? Right? The moment you ask yourself that question, right, you will look back at your education. Like, I don't think when I went to school or when I went to university, anybody was really concerned about what was good for me. I don't think so. Because if that was true, if really that was true, Sharvari, then you wouldn't see so many kids attempting suicides. You wouldn't see so many young adults who get frustrated with life and then have to find alternate ways, right? That data then shouldn't exist, right? If this was a system that cared about people, right? It really does not. It does not necessarily care about that person who's supposed to be at the center of it, right? So therefore the problem with the system.
Okay, so basically education system ये word ही problematic है एक तो, और दूसरा ये है कि system किसे serve कर रहा है वो देखना है. Why somebody else should decide what I should learn. So that is the fundamental question that Abhijit and Megha are raising here, and that is a very important question. So अब अगर if I ask you about Project D5, Project D5 is working on creating learning spaces. So, but still, education, if you say school is a confined space, then Project D5 is creating MOOCs. Is that also a confined space, or it is an open space?
Abhijit, go ahead, take that.
So, see, a space is not confined because it has 4 walls. That is the important thing to understand. Schools are not confined because they have walls or because you're inside a space. They are confined because this is what is confined. Your thinking is confined. You ask कि problem क्या है ना education से, बहुत बड़ा problem है. Problem ये है कि अगर कोई system आपका 15 साल में आपसे आपका एक हाथ ले दे, है ना, it takes away your arm. Now you would have a problem with that, correct? You would have a challenge with that. If it takes away your leg, you would have a challenge with that. Here is a system, एक ऐसा system है जो आपका सोचने का क्षमता ले लेता है आपसे, है ना? it takes away your capacity to think, and that is the problem that we have, and that is the cage we talk about. See, it is, you could open a space inside a garden, you could and still be confined, you know. That is it's not so much about 4 walls as it is about allowing people to openly think, to ask questions, to or even why even allowing, you know, that should not be a power that exists in your hand, right? People will ask questions, people will have curiosities, people will want to try out stuff, and they should be able to do that without isolating themselves from the society, right? They should be able to do that in conjunction with help and support and guidance from other people, and that is what we try to do. Some of our spaces are very tiny, right? Very tiny, but they are not closed spaces. So that's the I think the basic ethic of this, that don't shut down somebody's thinking. Don't put an agenda to it that serves whatever industry or government at large. Let people be. Let people think, and when they're allowed to think, when they have the space to think, they usually make pretty good decisions. The problem happens when they are not allowed to think. When they are, you know, for 15, 20 years, you are told that, hey, don't ask questions, just keep going one standard after another, one class after another, and then suddenly, oh, now you are free, now you are a complete human being, go ahead and make decisions in life. This is like some arranged marriage nonsense, right? It doesn't work out. So I mean, some cases, yeah, sure, but then you have had no chance to be yourself for 20 years. How will you start doing that now? So and we are not saying this as experts of what is good learning. I think we are saying this as victims of what is bad, right? I think,
Okay.
it has to be understood that all of us or people who have believed in DeFi relate to it because they somehow feel that some part of them was damaged while they went through an education system in one way or another.
Okay. So talking about your background, like you said that you are victim, but I don't say you are victims, you are leaders of education. So tell me about your background, Abhijit. First, you can go first and then Megha.
My background is fairly simple until let's say the end of college. So Mumbai, I grew up in. But there's some interesting things about it. So when I was a kid, I was sent to a school. The fees in that school used to be about 6 rupees for sixth grade, 7 rupees for seventh grade, 8 rupees for eighth grade.
Oh.
And this is not some 1960s your dad's story or something. This is not mine. So it's not that far behind. It was a government-aided school, and somehow what happened there was there were all these teachers who, or at least some of them were really amazing. They had come from some amazing institutes, I guess, from around the world, and ended up there, not even on a great salary, I'm sure, but somehow they were there. And because of these few people, I guess, or the quality that they brought, that school was liked by everybody. So in the same classroom, there were kids who were quite poor, and there were kids who were very, very rich, like the richest in the area, and they were all learning in the same place. So that was something interesting, which meant that sometimes we would go to a friend's house, sit on the floor and eat. Sometimes another friend's house, and there is gold leaves on the table, and you're eating in a glass plate. But we learned sort of that, yeah, okay, there's no differences between us. We are sort of the same, and we did not really experience any sort of discrimination that way.
Okay.
So school ended more or less happily. My school was very simple. There was not even a playground, it was just a building. But still, the good thing about it was that these few teachers really encouraged you to ask questions, especially the English teachers I had were really amazing. And I know this sounds very weird that this is coming from my mouth, but they were really amazing. They never gave answers, they always encouraged you to ask questions, to look outside, to go out, to spend time outside of school as well, to go for a lot of different things and activities. This was the way I experienced schooling, in a slightly different way, I guess, that I eventually realized that other people tend to not experience that. How I realized that was in college. So then, to get away from my parents, I think I moved to a college in Vellore, and started my engineering there. And I was truly, truly passionate about engineering. My dad was my inspiration. I really wanted to be an engineer, and I got it. So I didn't even care what engineering subject. Any engineering was good for me.
Okay.
And, so I'm walking into this college, and in my head, it's time, right? It's time to make like crazy, amazing things. And all of this imagination is in my head, and I'm trying, and I'm going to my classroom, and there the expectation is totally weird, right? The expectation is, no, listen, hold your horses. You have to get a job at Accenture. Hold on, this is not
right.
Go to the library and start working on your library management project or whatever. Like, so it was a bit weird. And I saw that I have a problem with that, and others are not like having a problem with that. Like, everybody else is like, yeah, this is how my school was. This is how college will be. What's the difference? Well, this is tragic. I mean, so that was my first year. And then second year was, as the years progressed, I started getting okay with this, So by the time I reached my fourth year, I am also like, up to somehow I need a job. Any job, I don't care. I'll take whatever. So I didn't even understand where this came from, because when I entered university, I had no pressure of getting a job. My parents were fine. It was not like I had to pay off some loan or anything like that. So I had no need for a job necessarily. But by the time it was fourth year, this super rush that is instilled in you want to get a job. So I got a job, and that's how I came to Bangalore. And then started actually going back to university without telling the university, because this interesting lab opened there. Where there was this guy from MIT. He doesn't always like if I tell his name, so I won't. But and he was running this makerspace there, and it was amazing.
You know the name, so
yeah, I think you know the name. Many people know the name. So he started this lab, and I started going there. My friends told me about it, and the first time I met him was actually, over a drink, which I had never done with a professor, which was very strange for me. And it was great because we are having this drink and we're talking about world problems to solve. Never in my engineering lifetime, I actually believe that there is a world problem that I am capable of solving.
Right, right. Same here, same here.
Right. And that started. So I would work in an office here Monday to Friday, and then Friday night I would leave for the university, stay there in the lab for 2 days, and come back on Monday morning, go back to office. So I did that for about like almost a year of that.
That's dedication.
No, it was fun because that was the only part of my life that actually was fun.
Okay.
Right. So didn't feel like too much actually. It was
Okay.
really amazing. So that's where I started realizing that, hey, wait, I have been scammed. This is all the thing. They all lied to me all my life. They all, they made me believe that I'm incapable of doing things. Actually, that's really not true. People are very capable. It's all these restrictions and blinders
Right.
are actually put by a system that
Yes.
has a very strange agenda. And I don't have to be part of that agenda. I can separate myself. So then I left the city, left the job, went to a village, and then story starts.
Okay, great. So this is a relatable story, Abhijit, क्योंकि हम लोग भी same conditioning से आए हुए हैं, and my school was okay, but then problem is when you go to college, you are set in certain system. Then when you are in a job, then you realize, okay, कुछ तो weird है boss, कुछ तो problem हो रहा है. So Megha, you come from a very different sector, right? So Abhijit and I also come from engineering side, and that is the storyline of engineer. पहले degree ले लो boss, उसके बाद एक बार job कर लो, फिर देखते हैं. But you come from a very different background, so please tell us about that.
Sure. So my war with system, as you know, I like to call it, started very early, very, very early.
War.
So,
She's calling it war.
So I think I've been at loggerheads with everybody who is part of a system right from the time I was a child, right? So I went to a school. I come from a military background, so I was constantly anyways changing schools. But I was, one of those people who didn't fit in, right? So I was constantly the person who had to fight and struggle that much more because you couldn't solve a math equation, because you couldn't make sense of physics, chemistry in your head, right? Because you were somebody who was inclined more towards literature, history, everything that made sense to you. So, but what that led to throughout my schooling period is a constant friction, right? That it was a battle of me trying to assert what I thought I wanted to learn and I was interested in. And of course, the societal pressure of the parents, the teachers of exactly this, right? अच्छे college में चले जाओ, right? Boards अच्छे नंबरों से pass कर लो, right? And I definitely am like the 80s kids, right? So in the 90s, we opened up markets, internet came to India and all of that happened, but it didn't really change much of how schools looked at you. You were a product that had to be churned out, right? And you're churned out as a product on some matrix. It's math, it's science, right? It didn't matter if you were really great at your history, if you're really great at literature. And I remember around 8th, 9th grade is when I made up my mind that I wanted to be a lawyer, right? Now, this back in those days was an unheard proposition. It was unheard. It was like one of those things कि, कुछ नहीं करता है कोई तो वो law करता है, वो भी सिर्फ लड़के, right? And so I was like, ठीक है, you don't want me to do law, I will do journalism. Right? That was beyond the scope of things. That so was like कि मतलब शादी कैसे होगी इसकी, right? So I think for me, the things that were missing in the way I was accepted independently of the structures around me, right? So I'll give the funniest thing is, and that's why I think law excited me more, was that when I went to 11th grade. And in 11th, you choose your subjects, right? Science, humanities, commerce.
Yes.
And I went up and signed up for humanities. I was underage, so my dad went and he changed my subjects to science,
Oh my God.
right? And he, because he could, right? Because he was my guardian, right? And that to me was, you know, one of those things where I was like, uh, I remember first day of 11th grade, I was like, you really think you'll make a doctor out of me? Let's see how that works out, right?
Oh.
And that's what happened. For the next 2 years I battled, um, you know, I battled so many things, right? I didn't want to become a doctor. I, as a 16-year-old, was sure in my head that I could do really great at studying law or studying journalism. But then I had a system around me that was like, tum to bacche ho. 16-year-old doesn't have the brains to think for herself. Definitely doesn't have the brains, right?
ऐसा लोग सोचते
So-
हैं, ऐसा हम भी आप सोचते हैं, हम नहीं सोचते लेकिन दुनिया ऐसा सोचती
Exactly,
है.
right? Because again, right, your agency, you know, how, at what stage does agency start, right? And at what age do you allow people to really decide for themselves that what do they think they want to do with their life, right? So I battled this, and I somehow cracked one entrance exam of one law college. Alright.
Oh.
And I ended up in a law college, and there again the system was built to this thing, right? Law kar rahe ho, do nice law, get a corporate job,
हाँ.
move on to a legal firm, right? And there I spent years battling again a system where I stood up and said, I don't want to get that job, but I don't want to do that MNC corporate job. I want to go study human rights, and I'm interested in it. I think I want to, you know, really study that specific genre of education, because that's where I think I can make a difference. I can do something about it. And it was a no-go. It was a no-go, right? To the extent that in my 4th year, I had to battle then in administration for 6 months, which is a semester, right? Of saying that I will not sign up on corporate just because in that year, what happened is in a overall batch of 700 students, I was the only kid who opted for human rights, and they turned to me and said, "That's a waste of resources," right? And so for me, it was like, but this time I wasn't underage, right? This time I was 21, right? So this time, when they tried to get my dad to sign on, my dad was like, "Boss, can't do, not happening," right? And so, and therefore that understanding of the system again, right? That why do you want to study human rights and go get a job, go get a nice job, right? And do that. So I think even that laid the foundation for me to say that system really doesn't care about you. It has no interest in your well-being. It has no interest whatsoever in what you want to be doing. And what, for me, it linked back to, you know, your capacity to give back to society, right? Because if you don't believe that somebody understanding and learning human rights is important, how do you expect society around you to change? Because you don't think that's a good give back to the society, right? And so I kind of went through college like that. I stuck to it. I think for me, it was a constant battle. It was battling my teachers, it was battling my parents, it was trying to convince people, it was trying to constantly find another way to do it. You know, but I think sticking it out really was all I did it from my education background, to be honest, right? And it was because I was very, very interested in you know, what I could really do. And law for me was fascinating simply because I kind of really thought that law for somewhere sets down or puts down what becomes the standardized social interaction basis for us. And for me, that's why. But yeah, it was constantly about battling it out. It was constantly about saying, I don't care what you think I should be doing with a job, but I know this is what I'm going to do and stick to and fight it out, right? And that's how I went on to do a master's in human rights again. when I was doing my master's, it was the same thing, right? That, okay, you're doing a master's from a really amazing college, so go to UN, right? Or go to WHO, or, like just again, I'm saying, right? You're a product. You're just a bloody product. Where can you be, where can you be fitted in, right? Where can you be sold, right? Where can you be done that, right? So after my master's, when I was like, no, I will start at a easy to go position in a foundation that I think I can go to. It was again about nahi par kyun, right? So I think that's where my angst, and I think that's a very real experience of how systems deal with you comes from. And I think that background kind of always gives me a lens when I look at our nooks, and when we are asked this question, right, on our nooks, that acha, per end of 1 year, how many people get jobs, right? And then you're like, okay, this is a question I've dealt with all the while when I was growing up, all the while, right? So I know I'm better prepared to answer it.
Okay. So somebody's asking, do you think your views about system are extreme? Whoever wants to take it up.
Yeah, yes, they are. I think they are. I think both of us, I don't think DeFi would have happened if we were not extremists on our view on the system. So,
I mean, you could ask, backwards. Don't you think you're ignoring the all the shit that education is doing? Come on, that's everything looks extreme when nobody is asking questions, no? So yeah, sure. This is extreme, then it's extreme. It's fine.
Okay. So basically, I don't think this is extreme. This is one perspective of looking at things. And somebody is asking that if this is true, like whatever your philosophy is, then why new colleges or schools are starting every day?
Very good question. You should ask this question many times.
yeah.
Pehle to I saw that comment on the Facebook Live also. Yes, sir. So I would graciously request to not use that term with me. यही तो colonialism निकालने की कोशिश है ना? तो sir is not required. But the schools and colleges are, see, when you meet, and I say this with the understanding that yes, there are some people who are starting with the right heart. Yeah, that's not denied. But I think I've met now quite a few administrations. I can say that right heart is rare. Business comes first, So it is not always, especially when dealing with administration, you figure out that it is. Are they really caring about students? It takes only a little bit of engagement, and it's very clear that it's more about their rules, their methods, their presumptions. Sometimes it's not even just money, but the way they imagine society should be, young people should behave, and all of that. So it's a method of enforcement. It's like a police system.
Set of rules जो हमें define करते एक चीज को, school में भी rules है, teaching में भी rules है, हर जगह rules है. So
and all of them are impacted by it. Teachers are not exempt from it. They are also impacted by it. They are also affected by it. They are also the problem affects them as well. They are restricted as well. They are also asked to stop thinking and stop asking questions and just follow the straight road. So all of this comes, first of all, the people who are deciding our education don't have much to do with education themselves, right? They are just businessmen. Like they have money, they start a school or a college, or they're big politicians, and they they want to invest in certain ways, and so these are sometimes good options for them. But what do they have to do necessarily with education? I rarely see, actually, especially in new colleges and so on in India, that it's actually an educator who's starting a college. It's usually just somebody, and then they bring in all the teachers and all that, and somehow they have the power to control how education will be delivered to all of these kids. Yeah, that's probably the answer.
And also, if you really think of it, right, why do they open up every day on a basis? Let me also tell you, have anybody ever wondered what the kind of tax benefits schools and colleges get? Has anybody ever questioned that schools and colleges actually under, tax benefits get almost up to 500% off, right? Have you ever wondered why most schools and colleges are opened up by, family members of, people who lead systems, politicians and bureaucrats and these people, right? So really if you ask that question, right, if you really look at that deeply, you will know why. You will know that why they open up, because their business, that is all they are.
Okay. So here ये जो कॉफी कन्वर्सेशंस हम लोग सीरीज कर रहे हैं, so इसमें हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं कि एजुकेशन में जो जिन लोगों ने या फिर इनोवेशन में जिन लोगों ने काम किया है, they are doing something great in innovation or education sector. We are bringing them together, and we are presenting their work, their point of views to everybody. So now Project DeFi is a knowledge partner at Next Eduthon with us. Right, and Abhijit has mentioned this very clearly. Whoever wants to disrupt the system, I will be with them. I will be mentoring them, right? So now I want to understand key expertise wise, like what is Project DeFi is bringing in.
Well, our experience with lots of failures. Lots of rejections, everybody saying no and not believing in us. That's a superb expertise to share, I feel. So
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Bringing that. See, especially when I make that statement that we want to help people who are disruptors, it is not because we have this sort of ego that we will only work with disruptors. That's not the case. We want to work with disruptors because others are not willing to work with them. They're not willing to support them. They're not willing to put their money on them. So that is the reason that we want to work with people who are not talking the usual language, who are, even if they don't agree with us, that is not a problem. They might not agree with our methods and our models. That's fine. They think of their own method. But I think we want to spend our efforts in expanding the spectrum of what is understood as education or learning. So far, education has had a very limited spectrum. We want to push that. We want to push that border to as far as possible. So if we exist, just by that definition, now more people can experiment between what mainstream education is and what, let's say, our extremist form of education is. So that is why I think we say that. And besides that, I think we have a lot of people over the years have had a lot of doubts because we were nobodies, right? Like, and I would like to think we still are sort of like that. We don't have the baggage of being someone big, someone important, but also we did not have that understanding of how to do things. We learned by making mistakes. We followed our path without being able to see where we are going. And so people who are starting young as sort of like us, I think we are in a good position to help them through that process. Surely we will not remove their problems, because those problems are what make you you. But we can certainly prevent them from giving up, or help them from never getting back up after falling down a few times. Right? So I think that's what we can bring. I think.
Okay. That is great. So somebody who wants another way of schooling or another way of learning, I think education is a system, but learning is still not a system. So maybe a different way of learning there. I think Project DeFi is there to help. Now there's a question. When we talk about free learning spaces, how is it possible to spread such kind of free education or free space to masses? Megha, would you like to take it up?
Sure. So I saw that on the page too, right? Wouldn't that become chaos where schools with hundreds of children have no defined paths to follow, right? So here's the thing. This understanding is built on two assumptions. One is the system that you are constantly used to seeing, which is in schools and universities. Where you believe that 50 people huddled in a room and with one person giving directions is the best way for somebody to follow a path. And there is no problem with anybody having a path. The problem is with somebody having a predefined path. right? People, when they come together, also find a way and a structure to build their paths. And that's exactly what we see when we work with communities in Nooks, right? So in Nooks, we have at an average about 50 to 70 people we work with over the year, right? And these people over the year are across age, across gender, and across their exposure to the school education, right? And yet they all come together and find their own individual paths that they want to follow of their learning, and also find paths that they create together, right, of what they want to learn together. So what you see in a classroom actually is something that none of the people are deciding for themselves. It's consumption of somebody that told you what to do, right? Whereas what we see, and Rishikesh, I'm not saying this just as a theory. This is something that we've seen work over 4 years, at least in spaces which we run. We've also run Nooks inside schools, right, which are independent of the schools, but inside schools, right, where children are fabulously creative to create their own learning paths, right? They're smart, they're intelligent, they're brilliant, right? And the moment we take away this bias of the only way to create a learning path is when someone dictates it to you, you will see that individuals are capacitated to do it. And they know how to structure it, they know how to build it with each other, right? And they also know, because again, you've given them choice, right? You've told them, they all know that what's priority for them. They know what's something that they want to achieve. They know what's something that they aspire for. All of this exists in all of us. So chaos, we don't necessarily become a chaos. There's schools with hundreds of children, right? Have no defined path to follow, right? Not necessarily true. Inside the schools, if you actually dismantle the current system and you actually ask those bunch of children that, if you had to create for yourself, what would you want to do over the next 1 year? They can actually absolutely come back to you with a plan, right? The only thing is trusting that people can do it.
So how does a day look like when you say this is unschooling space? First, I want to understand what is unschooling and how does a day look like in a Nook?
Go ahead, Abhijit.
I mean, we don't always use the word unschooling because it sort of sounds like somebody is sick and you have to fix it. Which in some ways it is true, but not all people who come to Nooks are, some have never schooled, so they don't have to take the
unschool.
So, but to say about how a day looks like in the Nook, see, people, if you walk into a Nook, you will never see, or very rarely will you see that there's a session going on and everybody is sitting and doing the same thing. Unless they have organized it themselves, right? So most cases when you walk in, you will see that somebody's working on the computer, somebody's in the garden, somebody's building something, or somebody's cooking something. Everybody's doing different things. And in that moment, you will feel, oh, wow, so everybody is into something different. But it's not just instantaneous. If you stayed around for 3 months, then you would see, no, each group of people is working towards a goal. So how it works in a Nook is people come there, they first go through exploring and trying out a lot of things. So if they come and say, oh, I want to do this, I want to become a tailor, whatever, we'll say, okay, fine, park that for a bit and let's do everything that you have not tried, or as many things as possible. And then explore and see what is it that you really like. Meanwhile, we ask these questions like, okay, where did this idea of becoming a tailor come from? In most cases, it is put by somebody else. It's not really a discovered sense, right? So then we come back to, okay, now you have, you decide what you want to do in the next 3 months, what goal that you want to create, and whatever it will be, all good. So they try and form a small team, build a goal. We follow the same sort of process of keeping it, very specific, measurable, and so on. Again, we ask, okay, why this goal? What is the story behind it? Why do you want to do it? What do you want to achieve from it? So our job is just asking these
Asking
questions,
questions.
and then getting that habit to ask questions yourselves, because after some time we leave, right? So so they get into that habit of really questioning what is it that they want to do. And so they try to pursue that goal, and whatever they need in order to achieve it, let's say it's tools, materials, to some extent the Nook can provide that. There's already some tools, there's computers, there's internet, there's a lot of trash that we collect, garbage that people throw out, because that is very useful material. You can recycle that and build so much. And there's also a small amount of money that we keep aside, and the community can decide what is it that they wish to purchase every month. And if all of that is still too less, then figure out, be resourceful, go talk to people, find help. Right? This is the education is not something that we put together in a nice plate and put it in front of your table. You go look for it. Go look for your learning. Go look for the help you need. Even if you need mentors, you need somebody to learn from. Nobody's against that. It's not that we don't like teachers, we don't like mentors. No, you should have the choice to choose what kind of help and support you want. And so if it's a mentor you need, if it's a class you need to do, if it's a course you need to attend, all of that is fine. Do it with after asking a bunch of questions to yourself. Do it with some understanding. So that's how Nook looks like. Very chaotic to an outsider, but very organized and precise to the one who's a learner inside.
Okay. So there is a lot of community connect as well, right? So how do you create a learning community together, or maybe there's an outsider who wants to help in the Nook, or maybe somebody from Nook wants to go outside. So how does that interaction happen?
We just don't stop it. I mean, what's so complicated in that? I think so. I think that comes from school understanding, isn't it? You can't walk into a school and start engaging. Kids can't go out. It's not the case here. You can do it all the time. So we just see. You know what? This is what so the thing is, for a long time, people have been saying, "Oh, you guys are so creative and all of that." See, I don't agree. We are not creative, innovative, nothing, right? We just cut out the bullshit that education systems seem to have, and then you have a Nook, right? Kill the bullshit, and your space will look something like this, right? So it's nobody's stopping them. And they do, like, there's no barriers. That's what it means to not have a sort of a closed environment. And if they need help, why would we do anything? There's all these people in that space, right? There's all these other learners. There's so much help. I mean, who are we? Like, we are outsiders, somebody who has very little contextual knowledge. How are we in a position to help, right? And that is the grounding that we expect, like, even DeFi team members to have. Be grounded. Understand you are not necessarily always in a position to help, right? You are in a position to learn. You are in a position to co-create, right? And if that helps, then that's great. But then there are so many other people who will never in their lifetimes probably be called a teacher, or will be called an educational expert. But in a Nook, they have that role. They have the possibility of sharing what they know, no matter if you're a 90-year-old grandma or if you're a 10-year-old child. You are for somebody a source of learning, and somebody else is for you. That's a simple way in which it works.
Okay. So now you're saying that somebody from outside is coming, or somebody who is not a formal student, they are also joining the Nook, and they are taking some ownership of the problems, and they want to do something in their life, right? So how can we as people, like there are many students watching it, there are teachers watching this, so how can they take ownership of problems and they can create something in education, because they are concerned about education right now? So what will be your advice? Megha, would you like to take it up, or Abhijit will take it up?
We can take it in turns. Abhijit can go and then I can go next.
Okay. So for a long time, I used to think that to do something interesting, you have to be very intelligent. Then I was told that to do something interesting, you have to have a lot of knowledge.
Qualifications?
And I never believed that. But then money was another concern that people brought. So now it is probably our 6th year of doing what we are doing. Even before the organization was established, we were experimenting. And I think the only constant answer I still have is if you're somebody who wants to do in education, why didn't you start yesterday? And what is this fear all about, right?
Okay.
So, courage is the only thing that helps, I think, or stupidity. Both are same thing sometimes, right? So you could be really stupid, you could be courageous. I have felt that in many cases I was very stupid and I did not really take a lot of advice that people were giving, and a lot of warnings that they were sharing with me, and I ignored them, and so I continued. That stupidity really helped. If I was sitting and thinking, oh my God, now what, this may or may not work, do a feasibility analysis, and will this happen or not happen, then this would not happen at all, because you can't be, you have to be stupidly optimistic. You have to not have these, that is it possible or not is not a question you try to answer, right? It is a question that will get answered with time. You are not the one who has to think about that right now. You want to do something, do it. And need help, yeah, well, there's some people around, I would think.
Yeah, of course.
I think I would just say start small. This you don't have to look at education for the masses, education for the world, education to change society. How do we revamp education? How do we change the way schools work? Now that seems like a massive, battle to fight, right? Instead, right, like I would say, you'd really want to change the way education works. Look within, look at your homes, right? Are you still pressurizing? Are you still pushing children at homes to finish homework? Are you still judging them when they bring back a report card, right? Are you still concerned that my kid will not finish this grade, especially right now with COVID, right? Will my kid go to the next grade, right? Are you still concerned that a school degree or a university degree is the only way my child will do better in life, right? Answer those questions for yourself, right? Because if you are able to get rid of those inbuilt understanding of education and what education is supposed to do, you would have already started, right? You would have then started empowering your child at home, and maybe two other kids who are friends of your child, to start looking at learning differently, right? If you start encouraging them to kind of just drop out if they want to, and explore what they want to do for some time and not go to school, you would have started somewhere, right? So I think that's what I always say to someone, like, you're not here to battle the universe. You're probably here to really change from yourself, right? And most of us go through education, is institutionalized, exists as it exists because a lot of us say yes to it, right? So I think that's what I would say, start there.
Okay, so if you have a problem, if you have problem with system, or if you have there's a textbook that you don't like, just do something for it and start small. That would be Abhijit and Megha's advice, right? Again, there's a question. What are your ideas of education without using the word system? And are these ideas feasible for masses in terms of implementation? Who would you like? Megha?
Sure. So, I mean, so I would ask back that what do you think education is supposed to do? Right? Sure. Without the word system, then sure. Then let's just answer for ourselves. What do you really think education is supposed to do? What have you been told education is supposed to do? For me, education, as I know it today, as I have been brought up with, is nothing but a factory model to make more factory workers. That's what education is in the current form and existence. What should education be? It, like we say earlier, and like we say at Defy, right? It has to be a choice to pick up something that you want to do with your life, and to have the agency to be able to build your life according to your choice. That is what education is meant to be. How do you take it to the masses? Again, like I said, Defy, I don't think Abhijit and I have ever claimed that, we're going to change the way the world looks at education, right? I don't think that's the legacy we are talking about, right? How do you take it to masses? We're doing it at our bit. We believe that the moment you take learning to a community level, to a community model, and these communities start growing as pockets across in regions, I think we would already have masses becoming a part of it, right? So if every community has a small little place where they are all experimenting with their learning and what they want to do, you would have had a nice foundation of it reaching to a lot more people, because you've already created transformers there who can then go back into their families and change it for them. So I think that's where we are looking at.
What about you, Abhijit?
Oh, I mean, masses is a very, क्या बोलते हैं ना, you're making our burden much bigger than it is already. So, ठीक है. I mean, I think we have a philosophy, and we think that that philosophy could work for a very large number of people, the whole world probably, you know, and that is cool. But when we are trying to execute our ideas, we are not thinking masses. We are thinking of that individual person who we want to work with. We are thinking very down on the ground. See, when you think of masses, you become a UN. We don't want to do that. We want to work with people, human to human, and so I think the question was also that how are you executing your ideas? We started. No, I mean, we've had now 16 spaces. They are not perfect. They are also learning. The space is learning. The people are learning. There's some rebellion happening. Yes, people are not being okay with how the status quo of education is. That is the win, and the more we are doing that, the more people are being not okay with accepting bad education. So in that is all you need to do, I think, to change something, is to create a demand for that change, right? To make people to question something that was otherwise not so much questioned, not by a large number of people. So and then it can work sort of like it can spread. When one person says something, it affects somebody else in their own thinking. So I think there's a way to reach very large number of people. Yes, there's a way even you could do it at a very large scale. When we even look at NOOCs, they are cheaper to run per student even compared to government schools. So there's all the feasibility to do it. Right, there is enough money available to do it. There is the only thing that is lacking is understanding this conversation, right? So that is, I think, one of our biggest jobs. I don't think our biggest job is to create the maximum number of NOOCs in the world. At some point, other people will start doing that as well, or maybe make a better version of it or something like that. Our job is really to bring this conversation, and so even if people are unhappy with us after watching this, at least they will go back and not be able to sleep a little bit for an hour, and they'll think if they're doing the right thing for their child, or if they're okay in supporting a system that is creating all this mess. So a lot of questions will come to mind, and as my friend once said, that she's actually a very unique kind of teacher, and she said that when I do a session, when I'm with a classroom, I don't want them to go back with a lot of answers. I want them to go back with a lot of questions. If we can achieve that, I think we win. That is all I want. I don't want them to believe in what we are doing or anything like that, or I don't want them to necessarily accept, but question. That should be enough.
Okay. So start with a question, and maybe start with why.
Yeah. What the hell? Is that
That's Abhijit's way of saying it, not Charvari's way. I ask why. Okay, so it was amazing to talk to both of you. Kangshi is saying something very creatively. प्रॉब्लम ये है कि स्कूल एक सिस्टम है. प्रॉब्लम ये है कि मेरी लाइफ में अगर कोई प्रॉब्लम ना हो तो ये स्कूल सिस्टम का सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है. Would you like to respond to that?
Kangshi, that's so true, right? Again, it builds back, right? It's I think startup ecosystem में है ना, ये बहुत popular statement है कि try to solve a problem for someone, right? Build your design, your solution around what you are able to solve for someone, right? So till the time schools don't make you believe you're problematic, how are they going to fleece you off all that money, right? How are they going to fleece you off all of that, and fleece you off all your brain and your independence and all of that, right? So that's so true.
पता है, I mean, all people have to do is read a little bit of the history of education. तो
Yes.
समझ में आ जाएगा कि there is nothing wrong with education itself. The education has become the problem. There's no
Yeah.
problems to solve in education.
Yeah.
And then we will start realizing the difference between education and learning. Education continues to be an agenda. Agenda
Right.
is always set by somebody, right?
Yeah.
It is always has some outcome that it wants. Whereas
Yes.
learning happens automatically. You can't stop it.
Yes. Yes.
So if we can make that difference, so it will be very easy to distinguish between what is working, what is not.
Yeah. So I'm going to put one session common for all in the Eduthon on history of education for sure, because this is something that we all need to understand. And maybe a couple of write-ups also I'll try to put it up. And thank you so much, Abhijit, Megha. This was lovely conversation. I always enjoy talking to both of you. और ये कन्वर्सेशंस कहाँ के कहाँ चले जाते हैं हमें भी नहीं पता है, लेकिन एंजॉय बहुत करते हैं. So we are really looking forward to have you as our experts here, and I want you guys to talk about it, because you are the experts of unschooling, or you are the expert of making a disruption. तो क्या आप एक अपील कर सकते हैं?
Megha is better at this.
नहीं, आई थिंक मेन जो पार्ट था कि स्टार्ट स्मॉल, और जो भी प्रॉब्लम आपके लिए प्रॉब्लम है उसको सॉल्व करना शुरू करो. सो दैट वी हैव कवर्ड. नाउ आई जस्ट वांट Megha or Abhijit to be with us. That's all.
Yeah, no, sure. I think what's happening through Eduthon, what I would say this, one of the reasons I think I signed up is that there is at least a lot of thought gone into the missing aspects of it, right? So there is a whole theme dedicated to democratic citizenship, right? Nobody, when they talk of education, really talk about, even a child as a democratic citizen, right? Or being at the center of it. So I really think if you're somebody who's really interested in figuring out what can I do or what can I experiment with, I think this is a great place. It's where you come in, you meet other people, you get to talk to the people, you get to do that prototyping, right? You get to experiment with something,
right? Experiment.
Yeah. And you have those few weeks to do that, right? And it'll at least give you, at the least, you go away with hopefully a lot of answers to your questions, right? But also a way to question things.
Yeah.
Right. So I think one of the things about these kind of formats is that. So I think we're pretty excited to be part of Eduthon and to be part of talking to more people. I think for Abhijit and I, it's always constantly also learning time. You get to talk to new people, new perspectives, new thinking that people have on this. So it always adds back to what we're doing, how we are looking at things. So yeah, I think anybody who really wants to do that first step, that one experimental step, and is like, I don't have the money, I don't want to start an organization, अभी मेरे को संस्था शुरू नहीं करनी है, मैं कैसे कहाँ किधर शुरू करूँ, this is a great place to start. Then come in, prototype, and see if what you take away from it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
अच्छे से इंग्लिश में बोली, I'll speak in Hindi.
चलेगा.
देखो, एक्सपर्ट तो हम हैं नहीं, थोड़े से पागल होंगे. अगर लोगों को लगता है कि वो भी है थोड़े से ऐसे ही, तो दे शुड आई थिंक पार्टिसिपेट, है ना? मजा आएगा.
हम सारे पागल लोग हैं जो ये सब एक्सपेरिमेंट्स कर रहे हैं अपने अपने लेवल पे, और बाकियों को बोल रहे हैं कि आप भी पागल बन जाओ हमारे साथ.
Not better time.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Abhijit, Megha. Thank you everyone for watching this. And we'll have Abhijit and Megha again on one of the webinar or as mentors to some of the sessions. Great
Perfect.
talking
Thank
to
you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.